Hi, this is Sir Jet and welcome to another episode of the Rizal Lectures. Today we are here at the house of Dr. Jose Rizal in Calamba, Laguna. To begin this episode, we have a trivia. Are you ready for the trivia? Do you know that this house is closed every Monday? Today is a Monday and I cannot enter the house. So if you plan to visit the house of Dr. Jose Rizal, go here any day from Tuesday to Sunday. Now let's go to our lecture. I'm a teacher. My job is to make my students learn. I employ many strategies, one of which is encouraging them to visit historical sites, the places where our lessons happened long time ago, to walk on the pathways where our heroes walked on. That is why I am here today at the Rizal Shrine. Learning is facilitated better when we bring students out of the four corners of the classroom. Just like me, Rizal was also a teacher. Once upon a time, in his very productive life, he became a high school teacher and principal. Let's learn more about that in this episode of the Rizal Lectures. Today we will talk about Rizal the teacher. Rizal has always advocated for education. We can see this in many of his writings. In the Noli Me Tangere, remember Crisostomo Ibarra? He's the character that represents Rizal's advocacy that education is the key in making life in the country better. Ibarra studied in Europe and then went home here in the Philippines as the great hope for our country. He inaugurated a school because he wanted the natives to be educated and not remain illiterate. At the end of the Noli Me Tangere, Ibarra's riches was entrusted to Basilio, and he instructed the young man to use those riches for his education. The continuation of the story can be found in El Filibusterismo, Rizal's second novel. So Basilio became a student, and we see many characters and scenes in the El Filibusterismo about student life. And in the end of the El Filibusterismo, the revolution that Simon was hoping for and planned for failed. This may be Rizal's way of saying that education is the solution, not a revolution. Aside from his novels, another writing of Rizal that advocated for education is the A la Juventud Filipina. When Rizal was a student in UST, he won in a writing contest. His winning piece was the A la Juventud Filipina, or To the Filipino Youth in English. We find there the very famous line, "Ang kabataan, ang pag-asa ng bayan." This is probably his most famous quote. Rizal firmly believes that if the youth gets educated, the next generation will no longer be dumb and passive to the abusive Spanish colonial rule. And this is true for all generations. In our time, we really need education so that the youth will have a great and bright future ahead of them, and also the country as well. When Rizal was in Hong Kong practicing medicine, he thought of putting up his own school, and he said he would call it Colegio Moderno. Remember, in their time, when you say colegio, it means high school. So, in the English translation, this would mean modern high school. He wrote his plans on paper, and part of the plan is the schedule that he intends to use when the school would be in operation. Let's take a look at the schedule of Rizal's Colegio Moderno. In their time, schools followed the Montessori system. The students would live in a house away from their parents, and in that house they would do household chores aside from doing schoolwork. So this is the schedule that Rizal has in his mind. His students would wake up at 5:30, they would bathe, dress up, and do Swedish gymnastics from 6 o'clock to 6:15 a.m. Then they would do self-study from 6:15 to 6:30. Then they would have their formal classes from 8 to 10 a.m. And then a light buffet lunch. This could probably be equivalent to our merienda or recess, 10 to 10:30 a.m. Then they would have some sports activities from 10:30 to 11 a.m. This could be equivalent to a PE class. Then they would study once again from 11 to 12 p.m. Now, their real lunch would happen at 12 noon to 12:45 p.m. In Rizal's time, he calls it luncheon. Then from 12:45 to 1:45, they would have some recreation like singing and drawing. Then 1:45 to 3 o'clock, they would study again on their own, and another set of formal classes from 3 to 5 p.m. They would have tea or another merienda time from 5 o'clock to 5:15 p.m. and another round of sports activities from 5:15 to 5:45 p.m. Then from 5:45 to 6:45 p.m., Rizal wrote here recreation. Probably this is not sports, but the students are free to do whatever recreation they want. From 6:45 to 8 p.m., they will study again on their own, and then they would have dinner at 8 to 8:30 p.m. And from 8:30 to 9:30 p.m., just before they go to sleep, they would have another time to do some recreation, this time by dancing and making music. Then they would sleep, and the routine would continue on in the following day. Once again, they would wake up at 5:30 a.m., do some gymnastics, go to school, and follow the same schedule over and over again. Do you think this is a very interesting schedule? Would you like to enroll in Rizal's school? Or if you're a parent, would you enroll your child in Rizal's Colegio Moderno? Do you find the schedule very tiring or fun? Sadly, Rizal's dream school never materialized in Hong Kong because he was arrested when he landed in Manila for a short visit and was instantly deported to Dapitan for putting up the La Liga Filipina, a suspected revolutionary organization. So it was in Dapitan where Rizal had the chance to implement his plans of being a teacher and principal of a boys' high school. In their time, all schools were exclusive, meaning an all-boys school or an all-girls school. The one that Rizal established in Dapitan was an all-boys school. He had around 16 students, and some of them were his nephews. Remember that at this time, Rizal's family were residing in Binondo, and some of Rizal's sisters preferred that their children go to their uncle's school rather than go to the other schools run by the Spaniards in Manila. The other students in Rizal's school in Dapitan were from the neighboring communities there in Mindanao. Rizal didn't charge tuition fee from his students. In return for the education they're getting from him, they would help Rizal in his farm and in his clinic. So his students would be his assistants when he was treating sick people, and Rizal also had a farm, and the kids helped out doing farm chores for Rizal. In one of Rizal's letters to his best friend Ferdinand Blumentritt, dated January 1895, he wrote that he had 14 students, and the subjects that he teach are languages, mathematics, and how to work. He also mentioned in his letter that he's excited that day because they were going to make a water tank or a mini dam. So Rizal must have had some civil engineering background because he was able to guide his students build a dam in Dapitan. So there was a small river or a creek, and then they built a dam that is probably more than 10 feet high to block off the water from the river and to regulate its flow downstream. He also led his students in building a 2-kilometer long irrigation system from the dam to his plantation. Amazing! Imagine a bunch of teenagers under the guidance of a genius teacher. They were able to build a dam and irrigation system. Fantastic! What's even more fantastic is that this dam is still existing today. If we will go to Dapitan on a field trip, we can see this. The picture on the left is the top view of the dam. You can see there the wall, and then the river's water gets stocked up. It's quite high, as you can see, more than 10 feet high. And you see there little statues of Rizal and Josephine Bracken. Those statues were just added in the modern times. In the view from below, the water is regulated going downstream towards Rizal's fruit tree plantation. If we take a closer look at the dam, we can see there scribbled on the concrete or on the rock the names of the students of Rizal. These are their nicknames: Tam, Lucas, Leo, Marcel, Anis, Edjawan, Dagpin, Joe, Asiniero, Elum, Adolfo, Tom, and Aniceto. 13 names in all. Maybe the other guys were absent when the dam was built. But these carvings of their nicknames withstood time, more than a century, and we still see their names on the dam today. Aside from studying Spanish, French, algebra, geometry, and arithmetic, Rizal was also a PE teacher to his students. Rizal was an expert swimmer and gymnast. Rizal was also a music teacher. He composed a poem or a song entitled Himno al Trabajo, and he taught his students to sing this song while they work in the farm. And of course, aside from academics, the students learned about household chores. It was a holistic education that Rizal provided to his students. And finally, Rizal concluded his letter to Blumentritt saying, "Ah, what a lack there is of a good school with good teachers who teach so that the children may learn and not that they may waste their time as generally happens." So Rizal is saying to Blumentritt that he hopes more schools would be built in the country. Remember, in the 1800s, there were very, very few schools in the Philippines, and most of them, or all of them, are private schools, and only the rich can afford to send their children to school. We don't have a public school system yet at that time. So there were so many illiterate Filipinos in Rizal's time. And it's not just quantity schools that Rizal was talking about here. He also wants quality schools. He wants schools to have a quality curriculum for the students and teachers who have great teaching skills so that the students will have maximum learning. Rizal also laments that the children or the youth in the Philippines in his time just waste their time. That's why Rizal has this big heart for the youth to be in school. Now, what conclusions can we extract in this episode entitled Rizal the Teacher? Number one, we can see that Rizal firmly believes that the youth is the future of the nation. And this is very, very true. The youth will be the future leaders of our country. So if we don't train them well, what kind of leaders can we have in the future? Aside from leadership posts, the youth of today will one day be the people in the workforce of our country. They will be the future parents. They will be the future people manning our country decades from now. So we really need to take care of them now. They need to get education and values and principles that they would use when they would be the adults running our country. Rizal also observed that the youth are wasting their time. In the 1800s, since there were no schools, probably the youth during that time were just flirting around, and their priority is to find a spouse and have children. But there's more to life than just reproduction. Rizal wanted the youth to realize this and to use their time wisely on education. We also see in this episode that education must be holistic. In Rizal's dream school and in the school he put up in Dapitan, we can see that he focused not only on academics but also on the social and practical learnings. He taught the students sports, household chores, and many more things that they will use when they would be adults. Rizal's style of teaching is learning by doing. He did not focus on theory alone, but he let the students work with him. He taught them, this is how you do things. He demonstrated it to them, and then they followed his example. We have what we call outcomes-based education. This is a philosophy wherein you measure the learning of the student not by a paper and pen exam, but by allowing them to construct or to do something tangible, an evidence of their learning. In Rizal's case, it was the dam. So the students did not just learn about mathematics, geometry, physics. They put all these things in action by constructing a real dam. Rizal also mentioned the need to establish good schools. Today, more than 100 years later, we are going towards that direction. Very good. But we need more good schools to be built in many other places in the Philippines. And lastly, Rizal mentioned the need to develop good teachers. Do you agree with this last point? How many of your previous teachers can you consider good? Are there many who are boring or scary or teach with an atmosphere that does not encourage you to be studious? Do you think there is much work still to be done in this aspect of developing excellent teachers for the Filipino youth? Think about that. As a teacher, these are Rizal's hope for the Filipino youth of today. So we now come here at the end of the episode. Thank you very much for watching. This is Sir Jet saying, see you around.